Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon, and we're going to talk about one D&D again. We're going to talk about Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and where the hell this game has become in the latest incarnation of D&D. I think it's called 1D&D. It's not like 5.5 or whatever. We've got more old school D&D creators kind of coming out against or making a few jabs at Wizards of the Coast, including Margaret Wise, including Robert J. Kuntz. We're gonna talk about this. Some people have been sending me some stuff, and we've been kind of chronicling the latest iteration of D&D, and it's about as cringy as you would have expected. A lot of people saying they think the art might actually be AI or AI assisted because it looks a little off. But we had, Mexican Orcs. We have a video out there on that. We have these gay dwarf baristas with each other's beards tattooed on their arms. That's a little weird. The bacon muffins, because that's D&D. We've got this gem here. This is Lord Brian Urso tagged us in. Apparently Hillary Clinton is putting in an appearance in D&D these days too. This is a D&D 6e paladin. According to Ryan Howard, who looks like she might only turn the undead who have information on Whitewater. Yeah, this is a little weird. Like, we're looking at these images from the new version of D&D, and they all look like Jehovah's Witness paintings. Yeah, as a kinder, gentler D&D, but somehow, according to Margaret Wise, Dragonlance made it into the player's handbook intact. So we'll talk about this, probably because they had to sue them. A couple of years ago, there was a lawsuit between the creators of Dragonlance and Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, and they're still going ahead and releasing supplements and whatnot without the blessing of the original creators. But this is what happens when you sell your creations to a company and they have a right to take it and do with it whatever they want to do. We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out and watch those other videos. If you can't find them on YouTube, just go out to clownfishtv.com, do a search for Dungeons and Dragons, and you can see all the videos we've been doing. And again, this is not the first time that Margaret Wise has thrown shade at Wizards of the Coast. I think it's kind of funny to see these old creators come out against Wizards, but this is not the same game it was at all. I mean, it's not just the gameplay that's changed. It's not just the people behind it that have changed, but it literally is not the same game. They've made so many changes to D&D now that it feels like a totally different system than the TSR Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of like Disney, Star Wars, and Star Wars, but at least in I guess to Disney's credit, they kind of sort of have tried to keep it sort of kind of the same. D&D now is completely unrecognizable. If you grew up playing first or second edition D&D, what it is now is just unrecognizable. And a lot of people moved on years ago. A lot of old school gamers, they either kept playing their older editions or they went to OSR, which is old school Renaissance. Systems that are like older D&D, or they went to Pathfinder. A lot of people jumped to Pathfinder. So I don't know who D&D is for now. I guess, baristas in Portland or something, So this is Kevin Lamb put this up. Color me shocked that Dragonlance characters somehow squeaked by unscathed in the new Player's Handbook artwork. 3 physically fit white heterosexual heroes looking badass against a genuine threat. Someone at WotC is definitely getting fired for letting that slip through, to which Margaret Wise said, "I am astonished." And I had to explain to people that she was the co-creator of Dragonlance. But yeah, there's a whole history of drama with the creators of Dragonlance going against Wizards of the Coast. And Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms were the two major campaign worlds. We're going to talk about Greyhawk too. That was Gary Gygax's original campaign world. But when I was playing D&D, Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms were huge. Now, Forgotten Realms has seen a resurgence because of Baldur's Gate, and it was the location used in the movie too. And I think it probably is the most famous campaign world. I don't know if Ed Greenwood's getting paid every time they use it or not. I don't know if he's getting a shout out or not. I've heard that some of the creators of these campaign worlds and these characters aren't getting any mention in the movies or supplements or whatever. And it's a damn shame. I know in the case of Dragonlance, and I think Spelljammer, WotC released new versions of those campaign worlds and they didn't even consult with the original creators. I mean, technically, I guess they don't have to, but that's a very Disney-esque move. Like, we own this thing now and we're going to make it ours and we're going to make it modern for modern audiences. And I think it was Tracy Hickman who got in trouble for the one meme, posting the one meme about rejecting modernity, and they tried to cancel him too. But yeah, there was a lawsuit. I'm not 100% clear on what was going on there, but I think that got settled out of court. And apparently there was an attempt to buy Kryn back from WotC, but they won't sell it because they want to milk it, to use that brand. They've run it into the ground. They've run D&D into the ground. I don't know why they couldn't part with it. But it's not just Margaret Wise either. It's actually Robert J. Kuntz. And I have Michael Hovermail sent me this morning. I missed it on Twitter that he's actually having some issues too. He's going to take a break from posting. And there is a lot of vitriol being thrown at TSR, the company that created D&D. And this is what I remember, again, getting into D&D when I was a kid. I started playing, I would say, early to mid 80s. I'd say probably 84, 85 is when I first remember playing D&D, like actually playing it. And, I had the action figures and stuff from the cartoon show, but actually playing the game, I'd say is probably about 85. And that was pretty young. And we didn't know what the hell we're doing. And then I would say, like, actually getting into playing regularly and doing it the right way was probably late 80s, early 90s. So everything that we had was TSR. And that is the company that created D&D. And there were so many creators that their names would come up on all these supplements and books and novels. And so many of them, we've either lost them or Wizards of the Coast has gone out of their way to attack and disparage them. We know what happened with that disclaimer they were putting on the old supplements saying that, hey, this, it wasn't diverse and inclusive enough, but we have no problem selling the PDFs on, Drive-Thru RPG or whatever. But so there was that debacle. And then, we had the recent incident with, and you can check our previous videos on that, where they took the warrior from the cover of the basic set. And for the 50th anniversary, they decided they were going to make the clearly male warrior an obese black female, and that they were going to do a face reveal, which is so weird because they did a face reveal before. They had an action figure of that character before. But, it was so bad that Larry Elmore had to come out and say, no, that's not what I painted. I wouldn't have painted a woman that way anyway. Everybody knows what my women look like, and that's not how I would have painted a woman, especially back in the early 1980s. But there have been a lot of attacks on TSR. One of the most disgusting was, and again, covered this in a video, you can go check it out, but one of the most disgusting attacks I thought was the people that are working on D&D currently at Wizards, the people in charge of D&D, had made disparaging comments against the OG creators. They basically said they were a bunch of old white men from the Midwest, and they're so much more progressive now because they're giving us stuff like this now. This is much more progressive. But now we have Robert J. Kuntz, who worked on a number of TSR projects back in the day. Most famously, I know him from Greyhawk, being the co-author of Greyhawk. But he worked on a lot of stuff, and then he left when they pushed out Gary Gygax, as I understand it. And he's coming out and saying that he's out the door for now. Like, he's not going to post for a while. Three Line Studios, his company, and I got to give a hat tip to Secrets of Blackmore. We'll read his comments too, but this is what he said. He said, I have to take a break from posting. This whole attack upon old TSR has really tripped my trigger. A 50th year celebration, this is it, of the original D&D authors and its supplements. Gary, Dave, Jim Ward, and Brian Bloom are gone. Yeah, Jim Ward passed not too long ago. And that leaves me alone as the last man standing, the last author. It really is a burden watching this slanderous episode unfold. and it was done without one bat of an eyelash. A WotC fait accompli, done in such an assumptive manner as if they wield the holy articles on morality, of which they enact with their reprehensible judge. You can tell this guy's an author. He's using very large words, but I can appreciate it. I can't pronounce some of what he's saying, but I can appreciate it. Judge, jury, and executioner demeanor. They're probably wincing and wondering, us, the saints of truth, more like snakes. Anyone who would wait until the majority of authors who created the game were gone to stick it to them in this manner is a vile snake. And just to complete the deed, to do it on the 50th, show their admirers who's in charge, show them who's in control of the IP. They fear those times they had no hand in creating, and they especially fear Gary Gygax. They have tried to unperson Gary Gygax. Even people associated with Gen Con. I remember watching a Gen Con video a couple of years ago, and these were volunteers, and it was on their YouTube channel. They couldn't even pronounce his name. Gary Gygax. They're like, who's that? I'm like, he started Gen Con, bitch. That's who he is. It's like, you dumb people. It's like, I have nothing against Matt Mercer. I met him once. He was actually a very nice guy, but like, he didn't create Dungeons and Dragons, people. I don't know what you're smoking. Gary Gygax's name sends shivers up and down their crooked spines. And as if it wasn't enough to have hounded him in life, let's do a Houdini and trample on his grave. They would love to detach D&D from Gary Gygax completely because they did not like him personally. They didn't like his politics. He was conservative. He had a lot of guns, and he wouldn't have put up with any of this bullshit. He made a lot of bad business decisions, though, and that's how WotC wound up with all of it. Disgusting slime, but it's not just Gary or Dave and others. It's also about wanting to wipe out that success and claim it as their own. In order to do that, the fandom must be attacked as well as that history. Yeah, it's disgusting. All of it must be purged and never again allowed to exist. These people are the epitome of evil robber barons parading around as the good guys. Remember, guys, these are the good guys. Chris Cox, who's going to strip mine all this stuff and use AI to generate modules and fire people and use AI to paint paintings of Mexican orcs. Sleight of hand bullshit from gold-hobbled prestidigitators who don't know fantasy or how to summon it. What they know is how to push down on their little man syndromes by stepping on those whose shoes they can never walk in. That and preaching righteous indignation while counting their bottom lines, taking their vacations, and dreaming about their next cafe latte. Posers one and all. We fought these establishment pukes back in the mid-70s as they gathered about a fledgling TSR to bring it down. Now it's the second round. Wow. You have made a permanent enemy of many, you stupid coastal wizards. Let's see how many real magic cards you hold besides illusionary ones for this battle, neither sought after nor wanted by me and others. It's just beginning. You'll get sick of hearing my name soon enough. It's spelled Kuntz. Repost this as I'm taking a few days off. Peace to the brothers. Damn. Secrets of Blackmore. I imagine it's hard to sit back and watch what are your own life events, spending time with Gary, Dave, and everyone else who was there a singular time as the creation of a phenomenon was happening before your eyes and somehow you're a part of it. But now the recollection of these events is put into the hands of corporate mouthpieces who can only think of one thing, which is to denigrate the great minds that brought the hobby into existence out of nothing. Yeah, that's what they do. That's what these companies do. And that's like Disney. They act like they, created all of these things, and they do like to leave Walt out of the equation, or if they invoke Walt Disney, they have a very sanitized Colonel Sanders kind of mascot version of Walt Disney. I saw the How Disney Built America, and the guy they had playing Walt Disney is such a pussy. Like, Walt Disney was not a pussy. Walt Disney was a businessman, and yeah, he could be Uncle Walt, but for the most part, the Uncle Walt persona was just that. It was a persona. He had brass balls. I mean, his brother definitely helped make things happen, but Walt was the driving force, and he knew what he wanted, and he did what he had to do to get what he wanted. And these guys had to fight an uphill battle because they had like all of middle America freaked out, like, oh my God, D&D's summoning the devil. And now it's like, oh my God, D&D's summoning racists. But yeah, Secrets of Blackmore continues the arrogance of it all. Like when Jason Tondro is in the teaser video about how the new history book and claims he's the one person who should be in charge of such a project. Yeah, there are some of those guys left. Some of the guys that worked on those books are left, and you could have interviewed them. Then Tondro goes on to talk about how the history of D&D is full of things which their sensitivity readers will find offensive, without making a single mention about how profound the content within the pages of the book is, how they make sense of it. Their entire business is built on the ingenuity of other people. Hasbro just acquires stuff. They're just like Disney now. They don't have any creative people. They acquire. They've acquired almost all of their assets at this point. There are only a few things that they created themselves. And even then, like you look at G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe mythos was created mostly by Larry Hama and the people working at Marvel. And Larry Hama does not get royalties from that. He's 75 years old and he's still working himself to the bone because he's not getting paid every time you buy a Destro action figure or whatever, or Storm Shadow action figure. They don't have a single original thought in their heads. Yet they fling insults at the people who created our entire hobby and who are effectively writing the paychecks for these same smug egos at WotC. All those designers should feel ashamed for how they're smearing all the real innovators. Merles Crawford, is this really how you feel about the people who built your careers off of? Yeah, it is. It is. And Gen Con's the same way. Like Gary Gygax himself founded Gen Con, and I can almost guarantee you they would not let him in, because of his position on politics and guns and whatever. And for all its talk of D&D being this satanic game, the people who created D&D, a lot of them were Christians. Did you know that? They were conservative Christians, and that's why the demons were the bad guys. I'm just saying, like, dummies, you dummies. I wasn't there, and I don't get to do it either. It makes me feel rage as well. Yeah. I'd get more likes if I could. Gauntlets have been cast. My letter to Hasbro will decide the next course of action. Mark my words. Merles isn't there. He was fired or left on his own. Merles was a big fan of Greyhawk and never, to my knowledge, ever slayed the old Garrett Kisser. I don't think he did either. Yeah, this is some bullshit, and they keep doing this. This is how they celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons, by throwing shade at the original creators. And I've been following this, and I'm gobsmacked. I mean, Disney has kind of tried to step away from Walt to some degree, but they've never thrown him under the bus. Abigail Disney did. She said Uncle Walt was a bigot or something. I just think he was a man of his time. But Wizards of the Coast are basically wearing the skin suit of Dungeons and Dragons now, and they're treating the original creators like trash. And the new audience, they're not going to stick with you. They're not. They're going to move on to the next thing, right? I think it's already starting to kind of peter out a little bit. A lot of people are moving on to other hobbies. They had a big boost during the pandemic, but it's not going to last. And if you're going to double down on the AI art and stuff, they're not going to like it. They're not going to like it. I'm sorry. Anyway, this game's not for me. Lots of other games to play. I'm going to wrap this up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.